Are there really a lot of emotional children out there? And the answer, unfortunately, is yes. And it's about time to take a look at the reality of it all by showing the kinds of answers that people have to standard questions. So, how do I match up? Well, let's go find out. It's been a very long time since I did something like this, so I figured, why not? I've been noting a lot lately that there's a lot of really emotionally challenged children out there, so I figured it was time to see what my own emotional age was and why we have so many problems with emotionally frail people these days. This is just the first test that I came across online. I'm not saying it's good or bad, simply it exists and we're going to use it. This also isn't aimed at just religion or just at politics or anything else. It's aimed at mental, emotional, and psychological maturity and the undeniable fact that in today's world, there is painfully little of it out there, especially online. So by all means, feel free to downvote me if that's what floats your boat. But here's my answers to the test. When's the last time you did something petty? Well, I answered that I tried not to act out of a place of pettiness or spite, and that's true. I just don't care. I don't do anything mean-spirited for the sake of being mean-spirited. What's the point in that? It doesn't demonstrably get you anywhere. But wow, do you see this one a lot out there these days? I did a video a while back about downvoting, and this is exactly what I was talking about. You can say the most factually correct thing in the world, complete with links to all of your corroboratory evidence, and people will downvote you because your answer doesn't make them happy. Never mind that it's 100% true, it hurts their childish little feelings. This is how people think today. And that's not something you should be proud of. How do you deal with confrontational or rude strangers? Well, I tell them to knock it off. There was a time when I would just walk away and shake my head, but I really don't do that anymore. I mean, for something pointless, maybe, but for anything major, yeah. People behaving like little children deserve to be told to grow up for the good of everyone around them. Now, I don't say it in a rude or mean way, or at least I try not to, but there's no way to control how people are going to take even the most helpful advice, but you have the right to point out socially unacceptable and rationally indefensible behavior and thought patterns. But you need to make sure that's what it actually is, not just, I don't like it, so, wah! Because that's childish. Do you gossip? Well, no, I don't. If I'm going to have a conversation, it's going to be about ideas, not about people. Talking behind someone's back is childish. If you want to discuss someone, talk to them, not about them. Don't be dumb. Talk about their ideas, not their features. That's really why racism and the rest of identity politics is just so stupid. It's all about looking at immutable characteristics and not ideas. It doesn't matter what color or gender or sexual orientation someone is. It matters what they think and how they reason. Anyone who can't get that through their tiny little heads, they've got problems. Just saying. How old do you feel? Well, I honestly don't give a shit. Now, granted, some of that can be age and maturity. I probably cared more about how I felt when I was much younger, but age is ultimately just a number, and it matters far more what you've done with your time than how much time you've spent on the planet. This is really just an illustration of just how shallow a lot of people are. They spend all of their time worshiping youth and beauty and the personal validation of others. And who cares about that? If you need the validation of others to feel any value in yourself, you're doing pretty much everything wrong. When's the last time you cried? Hell if I know. I mean, other than things like the death of loved ones, I can't think of the last time. Now, that doesn't mean I don't get emotional. I just don't get needlessly emotional. Reality is real and shit happens. You just have to learn how to deal with it. That doesn't mean that you have to be happy about it, but all of the temper tantrums in the world won't change anything, and that's a lesson that a lot of people need to learn. A couple of months ago, by the time this ever posts, I had to put one of my dogs down. He was old and his body was failing, and it was pretty unfair to keep him around because he was just suffering. Or I guess he would have been if he had any cognitive faculties left. So he went to the vet in the middle of the pandemic and they put him down. Was I sad? Yes. Did I do it for the right reasons? Absolutely. Would I do the exact same thing today? Damn straight I would. Did it make me sad? Of course it did. But you've got to learn how to deal with it. Are you in a committed relationship? Well, I've been married for nearly 28 years, so yeah, I'd say so. And this is something that will probably piss people off, but if you're not at least trying to find someone to spend your life with, you've probably got some pretty serious maturity problems. Now, this is going to upset some of the feminists and the MGTOW crowd, but I don't care. It's in your genes. Humans are inherently a social species. But these things take work, and there's a lot of lazy people out there who don't want to put in the effort, and they don't understand the concept of compromise. You don't always get your own way in life. Welcome to reality. This is where you start to see the self-centered, self-congratulatory twits who think they're just too good for anyone else. And then, when they finally grow up, assuming they ever do, they're going to find that nobody else wants anything to do with them. And then they're going to die alone. That's kind of pathetic, isn't it? If someone is angry with you, do you usually end up angry as well? No. Why? Actually, depending on the situation, I more often just laugh at it. This is especially true when the religious show up in the channel and they just sit there and scream impotently at us that God is going to get us and one day we're going to regret it. Yeah, sure, pal. The only thing I regret is reading your poorly written screed in the first place. Anger is often a sign of misplaced emotional maturity. I mean, there are things to get legitimately mad at. Don't get me wrong, but you have to pick your battles. There are people out there who spend every minute of every day pissed off at something. There are people out there who go around looking for things to get offended by. And those people need to grow the hell up. When someone is mean to you, how do you respond? I don't care. I really don't. Now, do they have a legitimate reason to be mean to me? Well, that's certainly a factor to be sure, but in general, no, I don't care. And here's something that upsets a lot of people. I don't generally care if I make you mad either. I certainly don't set out to do it on purpose. That's kind of a dick move. But if the things that I say upset you, then it's your job to deal with it in some constructive manner, and ranting and raving online, that isn't it. But my feels, that doesn't matter. I am going to treat you like an adult, whether you like it or not. If you can't handle yourself in an adult manner, then that's your problem, not mine. I am not going to coddle you and treat you with kid gloves. Here's reality. Deal with it. Grow the hell up. Are you close with your family? Some of them, certainly. Of course, most of my family is dead, so those people, yeah, not so much. Really, I came to the realization a very long time ago that just because you share blood, that doesn't mean you have to like each other. And also that just because you aren't related, that doesn't mean you can't be close. There's more than 7 billion people on this planet. Find some that you like. You have no obligation to like everyone. How do you deal with toxic friendships? I don't have any. Expanding off the last question, why would you waste your time on people who are not good for you? And that goes for anyone. Friends, family members, it doesn't matter. Either you get along or you don't. Either it's a healthy relationship or it's not. If they're not doing anything for you and you're not doing anything for them, then go find someone else. And this is something that happens when you get older anyhow, because the number of people you know goes way up and the number of people that you're actually close friends with goes way down. Why? Because you learn to care more about quality than quantity. You get the people who really matter, and the rest, well, they can go way over there. It doesn't turn you into a hermit, but it makes you recognize what actually matters in the real world. And I wish more people would get that. Would you say you have a guilt complex? No, not remotely. That would assume that you have something to be legitimately guilty over. Do you? I mean, really, do you? Because there's a lot of people out there these days that are filled with self-loathing and figure, well, they have to carry the burden for past generations because, there has to be someone to blame, right? No, there doesn't. Everyone is responsible for themselves and their own actions. You don't get to create your own villain because you desperately want there to be one, and that's way too common anymore. It's not your fault unless you personally did it. Did you? If not, tell the whiny crowd what they can go do with themselves. Are you a good listener? Well, considering how many people come to me for advice, I'd say so. Of course, that's not really for me to say. I certainly try to be, so long as what's being said is worth listening to. Now, there is a difference between being a good listener and being a mindless one. If someone says something stupid to me, I'm going to tell them that it's stupid. Nicely, of course, but I'm not going to hold back my punches if someone is out in the irrationality weeds. And that's how my best friend, who used to do a podcast with me at one point, stopped being a Christian. Because we'd talk about religion, and I'd point out all of the reasons that religion was irrational and indefensible. Of course, he did all the heavy lifting, and he deserves all the credit, but I listened to what he had to say, and then I responded in kind. It's how conversations occur. Why are so many people incapable of having an adult, intelligent conversation these days? It boggles the mind. Is it easy for you to admit when you're wrong? Well, when I'm wrong, absolutely. But I am constantly challenging my own positions to make sure that the things that I've allowed into my head are the most defensible and evidentially valid as I can get. If you want to show me where I'm wrong, simply produce the data to prove it. I will change my mind. I will admit my errors. However, I think we've all seen the religious trying not evidence but feelings as their means to get people to believe, and that's never going to work with me. It shouldn't work for anyone else either. That's very much an emotional maturity issue. Your feelings don't matter. Fuck your feelings. Your feelings don't alter the way reality works. Grow up. Do you hold grudges? No. Why would I? I mean, honestly, what good does it do? How does this improve the conditions for anyone? This is just pure pragmatism. What do I get out of holding a grudge? Frustration? Needless upset? What's the point? So no, I don't. We can go back to the question on toxic friendships. If there's someone who is so problematic, and I hate to use that word these days, but, there it is, that I would have to hold a grudge, why should I keep them in my life at all? That simply makes no sense whatsoever. Are you trusting of others? Well, where they've earned it, yes. Because, as I've said many times before, trust and respect, they aren't simply granted, they have to be earned. You have to prove that you're trustworthy before you're going to get my trust, just like you have to prove that you're respectable before you're going to get any of my respect. Not only do you have to earn it once, but it's a constant thing. If you stab me in the back, then all of that trust and respect, that's going to go away, and it has to be earned again. And sometimes that's possible, and sometimes it's not. Welcome to reality. Is it easy for you to try and see things from others' perspectives? Well, in a lot of circumstances, yes. In a lot of circumstances, I've been there, and where I haven't, I try to look at the situation logically to see where they might have a point. But keep in mind, I look at things logically. If you just claim, well, this is my experience, and in my judgment, you're acting stupidly and irrationally, then yes, I'm going to discount that, and I should. Be an adult. Do you have a lot of friends? Well, not as many as I once did, but I largely talked about this already, so I'm not going to do it again. Do I have a lot of acquaintances? Absolutely. Do I have plenty of casual friends? Yeah, damn straight I do. Do I have a lot of very close friends? No, I don't. And the ones that I do, those are the people that really matter. Is your appearance important to you? Well, outside of social acceptability, no, not really. I try to make sure that I look the way my employer expects. After all, they are paying me. I try to look nice for my wife because I care about her. But otherwise, am I trying to impress strangers at the mall? No! Who the hell cares? Do you care what others think of you? Most people, no. There are my close circle of friends who, of course, I care, but your general dingus on YouTube? Yeah, not for a second. I care about what they say. I don't care about what they think. I care about how they reason. I don't give a damn about their opinions of me. Because, really, who cares? This isn't a battle of opinions. It's a war of ideas. The best ideas win, no matter who expresses them. And that's why it's so childish these days, watching people try to villainize their opponents instead of just addressing their points. Oh, well, you're a bad guy. Well, okay, sure, you're welcome to your opinion, but what the hell does that have to do with my argument? Nothing. These people are idiots. They really are. It's like watching a bunch of children on the playground screaming at each other. Since when has that become the acceptable standard for social discourse? Are you spiritual? Not remotely. In fact, I think spirituality, as most people I've seen define it, is absurd on its face. There is no evidence for a spirit or a soul or any gods whatsoever. You'd have to be an infant to believe in such things, which is why it's such a shame that there are so many emotional infants running around out there. I make 2 videos a week on them. They're not hard to find. All of these idiots care more about their feelings than they do about the facts. In fact, I don't think they give shit one about the facts when the facts become emotionally uncomfortable. This is not something that anyone ought to be proud of. Why are they? If things start going wrong when you really need them to go right, how do you handle it? Well, I do my best to change it, or if I can't, I accept it as reality and I adapt to the facts. Because that's really all you can do. You live in the world that you live in. All the wishes and dreams and blind faith you can come up with, that doesn't change anything. You learn from your mistakes and you move on with your life. Shit happens. Deal with it. Figure out what went wrong this time and try to figure out how to make it go right the next time. Crying about it doesn't help. Are you open about yourself with others? Well, it depends on the person, but yeah, sure, if they're worth it. Sometimes it's just dumb. I mean, you shouldn't be open with random strangers on the internet. That's just stupid, and everybody should know that. But for people that I trust, who have earned my trust and admiration, then yes, by all means. And they're open with me. It's kind of how adults work. Do you see a therapist or counselor of some sort? No. Why would I? I don't have the kind of psychological problems that seem so prevalent these days. And I was actually thinking about this a couple of hours ago, how society today, instead of recognizing faults and failures and trying to fix them, today everybody is normal, no matter how weird they are. Nothing is ever wrong. No one is ever to blame, and no one should ever be made to feel responsible for changing anything about themselves. If you're a psychotic mass murderer, well, that's not your fault. There's probably a support group out there somewhere. It really is just stupid when you think about it. Now, there are some things that should be accepted, but there are plenty of things that should not be. If you think that you are legitimately a giant white bunny rabbit, you need some serious psychological help. That isn't a lifestyle choice. It's a psychotic episode. It's a complete break from reality. Get yourself the help that you need. Who do you go to when you need advice? Friends, family members, you know the drill. Who else should I go to for advice? You develop your own rational support system. Some people, they ought to give that a shot. Is the truth always the best answer? Now, that's a difficult question because it can be read in two different ways. They're playing it as telling the truth, and that, I agree, may or may not always be the best option given any specific circumstance. However, is the truth, full stop, is that always the best answer? Absolutely. You should always be concerned with the facts, not your feelings. Your feelings don't mean a damn thing when it comes to objective reality, or really, when it comes to much of anything. There are very few decisions which should be made solely on the basis of emotions. They might aim you in a particular direction, but you need to weigh the real-world consequences of your choices as well. If you don't, you're just looking for trouble. Do you ever throw adult temper tantrums? No, and no one ever should. Yet we see it all the time.
More and more adults are being caught on camera throwing temper tantrums.
But there could be something deeper and more serious going on.
They go to 0 to 100 really fast.
They may be suffering from a condition called intermittent explosive disorder.
No, I don't think so. No.
It affects as many as 1 in 20 people.
A person who has intermittent explosive disorder feel they don't have control.
What makes the disorder different from a bad temper, experts say, is the extreme response. Cursing at someone who cuts you off while driving, that's pretty typical. But chasing the car down and ramming it could be a sign of the disorder.
I was flipping furniture over.
One man who started a vlog about living with the problem was relieved to find out the root cause and that it is treatable.
I started to work hard to do something about it.
Treatment typically includes therapy and learning techniques to calm yourself down.
I'm doing the side eye right now.
I'll take a deep breath.
Yeah, I don't think the judge would buy the intermittent explosive disorder.
I know, seriously.
And parents, don't you buy it either?
Yeah, really.
Okay, you better move.
Everybody just behave.
Donald J. Trump is now President of the United States. President Obama is the ex-president. And Mr. Trump, for the moment, steps loose in for the inaugural
What a great honor
address.
to be able to introduce for the first time ever anywhere the 45th President of the United States of America, Donald.
Tap on the shoulder. You adjust the microphone as you told, man.
For their gracious aid.
I am so sorry
They have been
to my world. I am so sorry to my world. This is not what we want.
We will face challenges.
There's so much
We will
potential
confront hardships, but we will get the job done.
for beauty and for
Every 4 years
devastation.
we gather
In
on
this
these
one
steps
moment,
to
it's
carry
almost
out the
incomprehensible that
orderly
they can
and peaceful
exist
transfer of
right now.
power.
So,
And we are grateful
so
to
close.
President Obama.
These are fucking children. They really are. Yet, there are some pretty sizable groups out there, or at least some pretty vocal groups, that near idolize these idiots. What in the hell is wrong with you people? How often do you replay embarrassing moments of your past in your head? Not very often. In fact, virtually never. Of course, that assumes that I have a lot of embarrassing moments, and I don't really think that I do. If you go into your decisions rationally and with evidence and critical thinking of forethought, then you don't often get embarrassed. You don't often do really stupid things. Now, that doesn't mean that it never happens. Everybody makes mistakes, but so long as you go into things with a plan and a lot of thought behind it, you usually don't take a major fall. Some of that, it's life experience, but a lot of it is pure rationality. More people ought to give that a shot. Have you ever cared for a pet? I don't think there's been a lot of time in my life where I haven't had pets, so yes, of course I have, all the time. I've got 3 dogs and 4 cats right now, plus other assorted things. And I wouldn't have it any other way. How often do you feel jealous? Virtually never. Now, I'm sure I've felt that way, but I really can't think of any specific instances. Because why would I? The people that I place my trust in are people who have earned that trust. If I trust them, then what's the point of jealousy? What is there to be jealous of? Now, it is possible my trust could be misplaced. I suppose that's possible, although for most of them, I've known them so well for so long, I find that to be highly unlikely. The most logical conclusion, based off the evidence that I have, is that they will likely continue to be trustworthy. Thus, jealousy is completely pointless. Would you say that you're a good friend? Well, this is the last question, and I can only say that I try to be, and because people have continued to be my friend for so long, I guess I'm doing something right. I'm not living in constant fear that I'm doing it all wrong and I have to be paranoid that people are going to leave me, because that's kind of silly. If they were going to, they would have left by now and I would have found new friends to replace them. There's no point in living in fear unless you've got a really good reason, a demonstrable reason to do so. Do what you do. Deal with the consequences. Live in the real world. It really isn't that hard. So, there you go. Let me know what you think in the comments. Now, some might say, well, you're just old, so of course you got the results that you did, which were, of course, that my emotional age is what my real age is, and I expected that. But I would have answered this way the same way 20 years ago, probably 30 years ago. Most of this is how I've always thought. Sure, we grow and we change over time, but the big questions, the important questions, those are simply part of your character. And for some people, their character is nothing to be proud of. Now, after I was done, I went through the list one more time, plugging in answers that I've seen coming from people that I consider very childish. It's hardly a scientific survey, but I wanted to see what the quiz would say, and it placed them all as a group into young adult. And that's kind of what I expected too. Yet back when I was that age, none of that behavior would have ever gained you any respect as an adult. That's the kind of behavior that you see from teenagers. Young teenagers. Once you reach the age where you have to get up and get to a job on time and act responsibly if you hope to keep that job, a lot of this behavior simply went away. But that's not the world that we live in anymore, is it? Nobody gets a job until you're out of college. They don't move out until their parents throw them out. And with all the helicopter parents out there, that doesn't happen sometimes ever. So people remain immature well into their adult lives. Chronologically adult, that is, because these people are simply not adults by any stretch of the imagination. They are not rational, they are not mature, they have not demonstrated the ability to think critically or intellectually, and when things don't go their way, instead of simply dealing with it, they throw a temper tantrum. And this is the world that we live in. I weep for our future. I really do.
Boom, dicky, 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 boom, dicky. bum.